There's this strange pressure that shows up before the big moments, not during the work, not during the long runs, during the ordinary days when no one is watching. It shows up right before the moment matters, and it whispers something dangerous. You should be doing different. You should be better than you were yesterday. You need to rise to the occasion. But what if that voice is wrong? What if the goal was never to be someone else, but to trust the person who did the work and is already enough to stand on the line? Welcome back to Still Becoming. I'm your host. First, thank you again for the responses from last week's episode and for all of the kind messages about the conversation with Jen Travis 2 episodes ago. That idea of the invisible work is also like resonating with so many people out there that I'm honestly just enjoying that. I'm glad you're taking away from that episode something that, I struggle with personally, and I'm sure a lot of you out there struggle with personally, you know. So thank you again for that. If you're new to the show, this podcast is about growth, not the loud kind, not the highlight reel kind that you see on a lot of Instagram channels where it's just let me show you I'm perfect every day. That's not what this is about. This channel is about the quiet process of becoming, slowly, imperfectly, who you are underneath all the noise, and today's episode is about something I think every single one of you, faces before moments that matter. No pressure to become someone, that pressure to become someone else entirely when that moment rises. I am literally less than 24 hours away from my marathon that I've been building up to, and, especially this last week, a lot of questions. Did I do enough? Am I going to be, do I need to be someone else? At that start line, I got to be this perfect individual who we're always, thinking we have to be. And no, I have been reassuring myself, trying to tell myself, no, we're good. This is everything. My mind is telling me, no, this is not. And that's sort of just nerves, nerves talking, telling you, we need to change this plan. And no, the plan is what got you here and you stuck with it. And that's what's going to get you to your moment that you're waiting for, that still becoming moment. As athletes, and honestly, I think just as humans, we're taught that big days require transformation. Race day, the presentation, the job interview, the hard conversation, the opportunity we've been waiting for. We think we need to flip a switch. We have to try to manufacture confidence. We try to feel extraordinary. We search for some version of ourselves that feels ready, more powerful, more certain. But, here's what I've learned, lately. That version, it doesn't exist. I'm sorry. It doesn't exist. Your mind is going to convince you that you need to be a hero. And unfortunately, no, you just need to be yourself. You just need to be the person that got you through that process, those long days, those days when you didn't think you were going to make it. That's the person that you need to just keep being. That person is the one that you should be trusting, not the figment of your imagination that says, I got to be perfect, because back in the day, that was when I was at my best. And unfortunately, we can't repeat those things. We can just move on and enjoy the next level you reach, the next milestone you reach. There's no race day version of you. There's no there's no interview version of you. A lot of social media can blind us with that and say, I got to be that person. But the problem is you're seeing them in that one moment. And those honest, real struggles, the people that really put themselves out there, those people have dark days too, any more than you do. And, there's no big moment identity hiding somewhere, waiting to show up. There's just you, shaped by ordinary days that you lived. All those mornings you showed up tired, with little sleep, or just you're racing around with your kids and, you go to bed that night and you wake up at 5 o'clock, not really rested because you stayed up late thinking, I need some time to myself. And that's okay to take that. It is by means always okay to take time for yourself. But again, that shows up tired. All those sessions that didn't feel magical where you're like, you know what? I'm going to crush it today. And then you sit back when it's done and you're like, what happened? No, don't let that destroy you. That's just you. It just wasn't maybe your day. And I'm sorry that it wasn't your day, but it didn't need to be magical. And maybe that's what you convinced yourself of. It doesn't need to be. And all those times you wondered if the process was working. Through this whole process for my upcoming marathon, I wondered, I'm like, oh man, the times, is this really working? Sometimes you just have to quiet that noise, quiet all those choices. And, that's when this is becoming, not today, not the big moment, the mistake, we make is thinking the moment requires something, someone new, requires this superhero like person that you're creating out there in your imagination. You've got to be like really good. And the truth is, the moment is asking you not to abandon the person who did the work to get you there. Preparation isn't about being a superhero. It's about building trust. And it, trust doesn't feel dramatic. It doesn't feel cinematic. It doesn't feel like a movie montage. It feels quiet. Honestly, it's been quiet this week for me when I have reassured myself, like, what if we're doing something to, no. And when you can get that to just subside, it's pretty quiet. And, sometimes it feels, underwhelming. You don't arrive at big moments feeling transformed. You arrive feeling like yourself. Maybe, a little nuance, maybe a little tired, maybe wondering if you did enough. And that's not a flaw in the process. That's evidence you process, that's the evidence the process worked because you didn't need to become someone else to handle what's in front of you. Then the work wouldn't have been real. If you sort of, had to be someone else, it would feel like you didn't earn that because you had to be this imaginary thing that you think is going to solve all your problems. No, you didn't need a new identity for the moment. You just needed to let the work speak. There's so, something here to try this week. And I love these little challenges. I hope you enjoy them too. They help me so much to break things down and just make things smaller. And sometimes that's what it is. You just got to make things smaller to get through that overwhelming feeling. And so notice when you feel that urge to rise to the occasion. Instead of asking yourself, how do I become ready? Ask a different question. What have I already done that proves I am ready? Write it down, say it out loud, remind yourself of the ordinary days that built you, you know, then walk into your moment as yourself, not a performance, not a character, not some upgraded version of you, just you. And let that be enough. I want to thank you for spending time with me today. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who might need that reminder that they don't have to transform to be worthy of the moment they're stepping into. You can follow the show at Still Becoming 26 on Instagram. You can follow it on YouTube at Still Becoming. And if you really just want to send an endearing message, or you yourself, like I've said before, want to become part of the show, email at stillbecoming26@gmail.com. And you can write a story. Or if you know someone that needs a shout out, write an email, send it. I will be happy to put them on Instagram. I'll be happy to even reach out to you or yourself, and we can set up an interview and share your still becoming moment. I send that invitation and I really sincerely mean it, And so, a reminder about the journey you're on. You're not trying to become someone else. You're still becoming who you are, and you are still becoming. And remember, you are the only one stopping you. Have a good night and a good rest of the day. Bye.